Please remember to mute yourself if you are not speaking to us. All right, live. Okay. Good evening and greetings and welcome to the Candidates Forum for Jefferson, sponsored by the Jefferson County branch of the NAACP. On behalf of our president, Mr. George Rutherford, and the members of the NAACP, we welcome you. Tonight, we have 4 distinguished members of our county who are seeking the office of magistrate. They are participating in this forum, and we thank them for their commitment to serving the citizens of Jefferson County. Just a brief announcement before our forum starts. As you may know, today was the first day of early voting in our state, and Jefferson County citizens can vote at the Jefferson County Courthouse in Charlestown from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. The courthouse is open between May 27th and June 6th, but it is not open on Sundays. So you can vote from now through Saturday, and then again next week, Monday through Saturday. All right. Once again, welcome everyone to this forum, and we are going to get started. Our candidates will now give their opening statements, and we'll start with Ms. Cesare. Good evening.
Are you going to pray, Reverend Laws? Are you going to pray?
Oh, you're right, exactly. That's important, and we all need it. I got so excited about the forum, I forgot one of my very important responsibilities. Thank you, Sister Ringo. Yes, let us pray, please. Most gracious, loving, and kind God, for this forum. We thank you for all of our participants. We thank you for their service to our county and their interest in making our county a greater and better place to live and work. Participant in this forum. Bless their families. God, lead and guide us now through this forum, and let everything we do and say be pleasing and acceptable our prayer. Amen. Okay. Now, Ms. Cesare. Oh, did I do unmute yourself?
Try again.
Got you there.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Camela Cesare, and I'm running for the position of magistrate here in Jefferson County, Division 1. I moved here with my husband in 1993, and we graduated from the I graduated law, excuse me. I moved here with my husband in 1993 when I graduated from the WVU College of Law. And then over these past 27 years, we've both been fortunate to be able to live, practice law, and raise 3 smart. During my legal career, I've worked as a prosecutor, a public defender, and as criminal court appointed counsel handling felony, misdemeanor, and appellate matters in both state and federal court. I've also taken court appointments in child abuse and neglect matters where I often worked as the guardian ad litem, representing the best interests of the children. More recently, I've worked as a guardian ad litem in domestic child custody matters here in Jefferson County. In short, for over 20 years, I've diligently defended our constitutional rights, both as defense and prosecution, and throughout my legal career, indigent persons and children that I represented received zealous and competent representation. I've also served and continue to serve on local nonprofit boards such as the Court-Appointed Special Advocates Auxiliary, and I'm active in my church, St. Agnes here in Shepherdstown, where I serve on the Pastoral Council. As an experienced lawyer, I'll bring valuable skills to this position. My varied experiences give a balanced perspective and well-developed listings. Jefferson County has lost approximately 75 years of combined magisterial experience due to the recent retirement of all three of its long-serving magistrates. The position of magistrate is judicial. Magistrates must make sound legal decisions, and they must manage their caseload in a way that preserves a party's rights to be heard. It takes hard work and practice to obtain the legal knowledge needed to be a good magistrate. And my legal training and experience will enable me to help Jefferson County keep its caseload moving efficiently and in a legally sound manner. Thank you for your time and for your vote on June 9th.
Thank you. Ms. Silveous?
Good evening. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak here this evening. My name is Holly Silveous, and I'm in Division 3 for Magistrate of Jefferson County. Some of the things that make me unique are I am a local. I was born and raised here in Jefferson County, educated here, and graduated from Shepherd College when it was Shepherd College. I have deep roots within the community, which allows me to relate as a citizen, a mother, a wife, a teacher, and a business owner. I'm educated and I possess common sense. I'm a problem solver and I work well with others. I'm not afraid to ask for help when needed to ensure that I complete the task accurately and without fault. My vision is to hold office of magistrate and ensure that those who enter my courtroom are treated equally, fairly, and with the utmost respect. So I'm asking that you please consider me as your candidate for Division 3 on June 9th on our election day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Roper?
Jefferson County voters, I am your newest magistrate, Arthena Roper. Before I introduce myself, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Jefferson County branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, otherwise known as the NAACP, for giving 2020 political candidates a voice during these challenging campaigning times. Again, I am Magistrate Roper. I truly enjoy serving my community as a magistrate. I try to build upon the positive and serious manner in which I represent the court system to defendants, law enforcement, and the community. I feel the judicial system is an important part of the balance of our society. I am qualified to continue serving as a magistrate because I am currently doing the judicial work as a magistrate. I hold 3 master level degrees, all of which provide me with a skill set that assists me in executing judicial work. I read legislative laws, I research public policy, and I use my leadership skills by being a good listener at all levels, from juveniles to senior citizens, defendants, law enforcement, attorneys, and civilians. A magistrate is a public servant. I have worked in public service for more than 25 years. I also have the unique history of positively relating to people at all diverse background levels. I am passionate about my duty to inform defendants of their rights and responsibilities when they are first detained. First, I'd like to just remind everyone that a defendant or defendants are people who have been charged with a crime. Informing defendants of their rights and their responsibilities is an important process in upholding the respect and dignity of the whole judicial system. My fundamental values are those of fairness and high integrity. I hope this forum encourages you, Jefferson County voters, to choose Arthena Roper when you decide who to vote for as magistrate in Division 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Oh, he has to unmute.
Mr. Anderson, unmute yourself and begin
Okay, could you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Osmund Anderson, and I am running for magistrate in Division 3. The word uniquely, we all are going through it as far as the pandemic. I am a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather. So I understand people at all levels. I served in the military worldwide, which means I have seen the diversity of individuals in the best days and the worst days of their lives. This will allow me to be the type of magistrate that will ensure justification and justice is served to both the victim and the individual that committed that offense. I served 2 tours in Iraq, which means I understand the emotions and absolutions of individuals, and I will use these skills in the magistrate court. During my internship at Shepherd University, I saw the criminal and the victim side, and there is a means. I will draw the line, and if crossed, the individual will receive punishment. What is my vision for the office as a magistrate? Number 1, my vision for the magistrate office is justification and justice should be served to both the victim and the individual that commit the offense. Number 2, all people are treated equally because this is the principle in which our country is built upon. We should treat individuals that are using the court system with the utmost respect. Number 3, not only that, we should be mature, and make firm and sound decisions when necessary. Also, we have to have the ability to communicate and process information. Number 4, I live by the military traits. If the magistrate office incorporate the military traits, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage, the court system may be conducive for everyone. I want to say to the voters out there in Jefferson County, we all are going through this pandemic. Stay safe, practice social distancing, collaboration prevents separation. Vote Osmund Anderson for magistrate for Division 3.
Thank you, sir,
Thanks
and
for
thank
having
all the candidates. We are getting ready for our question and answer period. Some of our questions have been submitted earlier. Those who are tuned in via Facebook can submit questions via Facebook. We have shared with our candidates that they have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. So at this time, I would turn our Q&A period into the hands of my capable colleague and friend, Ms. Antoinette Ringo.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Before we get into the questions, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, before we get into the questions, I would like to read to you some of the roles and responsibilities of the magistrate. Magistrates use their training and sound judgment to oversee the application and enforcement of state laws, municipal laws, and court procedures. Magistrates have jurisdiction over civil cases in which the financial amount in dispute is less than $10,000. They hear misdemeanor cases and conduct preliminary examinations in felony cases. In criminal cases, they issue and record affidavits, complaints, arrest warrants, and search warrants, as well as set bail, to make decisions concerning proposed plea agreements, the collection of court costs, cash bonds, and fines. Magistrates issue emergency protective orders in cases involving domestic violence. Immediately entering domestic violence petitions into the domestic violence database and registry is an important part of their work. So we will begin with our questioning, and as stated, we would like for each candidate to respond 2 minutes to the question. I will begin my questioning. Question number 1, do you support or oppose magistrates having a college education as a condition of holding office? And we will start at the top with Ms. Cesare. Next we will, and Mrs. Roper, then Mr. Anderson, in that order.
Thank you, Ms. Ringgold. Yes, I do support magistrates having a college degree. Magistrates do produce a lot of information, and they need to be able to understand the laws that they're working with. And that takes some training of your mind, and you need to be able to know how to read the law. Magistrates, in addition to reading the statutes that people are charged with, they also have to work with the rules of evidence, the rules of criminal procedure, the rules of civil procedure, the rules of magistrate court. All of those rules control how the hearings and the jury trials that they're going to be presiding over are conducted fairly and with integrity. So it's very important that your magistrate has some type of, has a good level of education, so they have the capacity to take this information in and work with it and absorb it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do agree with having a college education. I know currently the requirements for magistrate do not require that. I think anybody who goes to college has the ability and shows the determination to achieve something, such as a degree. And as Ms. Cesare said, you need to be able to read and research and study things to be able to understand and interpret the law and apply it into a court setting. And as she said as well, a magistrate is a very important person. We do a lot of things that affect other people in the community. So I feel that somebody who is educated would also be somebody who has good sound judgment. And I think that is very, very important in the role of a magistrate.
Thank you. Next.
Yes. Answer is going to be different. I believe in education. That's why I have 3 master's degrees. But as far as being a magistrate, I believe a magistrate is more of the people's judge. And I wouldn't want to eliminate a person from being able to hold the position if they were not able to afford going to college, or if they weren't able to complete college. It is a position, you need to be a thinking person, and a person who applies themselves may not have the opportunity to get a college degree, and I wouldn't advocate for or against a person being a magistrate if they had a college degree or not.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson. You will need to unmute, please.
Okay, could you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Well, I got a totally different opinion. I don't feel that you need a college education to be a magistrate. A magistrate job is a very important job. I get it. But there's a lot of jobs out there that's very, very important. It doesn't actually require a college degree. My military background, I never had a degree and I was very successful. And I say that because the military teach you, if you don't know it, then you just go research it. And I don't think that you need a college degree to do research. You just need common sense. That's just my take on it. I just got my BA degree in social work at Shepherd University. I don't think that that's gonna really help me as far as me being a magistrate. I guess I'm saying my strength is my military background. It's instilled in me as far as loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, and just treating people, you know, the way that you want to be treated. And it's like anything else, you know, whether they send me to training for a week or 2 weeks, I'm gonna take that training because all it's gonna do is enhance me and help me. But the qualification, I mean, it states big as day, just a high school diploma, 21 years of age, and a citizen. So I ain't gonna say that you're overqualified, even though I got that BA degree, but if I'm talking to my voters, I won't bring my degree up because that's not important to them. What's important is what could you do for me, and as far as social programs and things like that. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Our next question we will take from
Yes, ma'am.
Facebook. The question is, will you look for all the available alternative to incarceration when the alternative do not threaten public safety? And that's from Bob Graff. We will start with Mrs. Roper, Mr. Anderson, Ms. Silveous, and then Ms. Cesare.
Make sure you unmute.
Yes. The question was, will I look or do I look for all of the alternatives when, what was the rest of that?
Will you look for all the available alternatives to incarceration when the alternative do not threaten public
Yes,
safety?
I do that.
That is the
Yes,
question.
I do look for all the alternatives, and we do have alternatives to incarceration. We can do home confinement, which is a monitoring system in lieu of incarceration. When I do bond, I like to offer, if the defendant qualifies, I like to offer them the opportunity to have a percentage, pay a percentage, hold that for bond, and once they appear in court, they can get that money back. That helps them if they have any fees related to the charge. There are different alternatives, and I do apply them.
Next.
Who was next? Arthena.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson.
I'm trying to unmute. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm sorry, I'm having difficulties over here.
You're
Could you
fine.
hear me?
We can, yes, proceed.
Yes, ma'am. I definitely, you know, believe that we should look at all the alternatives before you incarcerate anybody. You know, my take on it, because of my past experience of coming up in Providence, Southeast Washington, D.C., the only thing that I had that was available to me was a Boys and Girls Club. So they really didn't have a lot of programs in place for me to somewhat, I would say, stay out of trouble. But I credit my parents because my father was a Pentecostal preacher, so he kept 7 kids that was brought up in the ghetto in Providence in church 5 days out the week. So that's what kept me out of the court system. That's what kept me from committing crimes on the streets. But now I see in Jefferson County, they are alternate programs that's in place. So I would definitely, like, you know, Magistrate Roper said, home confinement, community service. There's a lot of other things that you can do before you just want to just lock a person up. I think that should be the last resort. But then again, it depends on the severeness of the crime. Thank you.
Next.
Yes, I'm going to piggyback on both of the previous comments. I do agree with alternative options rather than incarceration. And of course, it depends on the severity of the crime. Is not a risk, and the crime is not something that results in a dangerous situation, I'm all for things such as rehabilitation, drug court, home confinement, and things like that. There are a lot of alternatives out there that can be utilized that can help a person as well.
Unmute your phone, please. Unmute.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay, so to echo what some of the other candidates have mentioned, yes, it's important to try to bring in alternative sentencing when you can. And some of the options we have in magistrate court is unsupervised probation, the day report center, and home incarceration are the three big ones that we tend to work with in magistrate court. And what we try to look at is the severity of the crime and what the defendant is doing to try to address what has happened. If the defendant looks like they are working hard to get on top of what caused them to commit the crime, oftentimes it's a result of substance abuse. If they're getting money to perhaps make restitution to a victim whose house they might have broken into or stolen. These are the sorts of things that help a magistrate determine whether or not alternative sentencing would be a good idea to work with a person. So those are the sorts of things we want to look at. And of course, you would always take the victim's point of view into consideration when doing this, but absolutely alternative sentencing is very important. Our jail bill here in Jefferson County has been quite high. They've done a good job. All the magistrates have done a good job getting the jail bill under control, and we've learned over the past 20 years that just, thank you. Well, if I could just mention, we've learned over the past years that incarcerating people doesn't work all the time.
Our next question also comes from Facebook, and that question will be, how would you prepare yourself to handle cases involving unfamiliar areas of the law? And we will start now this time with Mr. Anderson, then we will have Ms. Silveous, followed by Ms. Cesare and Ms. Roper. You will conclude that question.
I'm trying to unmute Kobe. I apologize for my difficulty.
We hear you.
Yes, you're fine.
Okay, now what was the question again? If you don't mind, could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. Again, the question is, how would you prepare yourself to handle cases involving unfamiliar areas of the law?
That's a good question. The way I would handle that situation is, I was always taught in the military, when you don't know something, you ask somebody, or you go do your research. And I just want to say this. I want to use for an example. I would look at Magistrate Buber, 36 years. You got Magistrate D'Angelo, 20 plus years. You got retired Magistrate Wrestler. That's almost 76 years. So if I was a part of that team and I didn't know anything, I would ask the questions. I just won't go on assumption, and I would do my own research from there. That's my take on it. Thank you.
I'm a firm believer it's important not to assume that you know everything, and to be humble enough to ask for help when you are in an unfamiliar situation. So as Mr. Anderson said, you have a team of people there to help you, and you need to be able to take the time to look into the situation, research what's needed, ask questions, go to people, and find your network. Find who it is that you can go to for help when you don't understand something. Ask for help than to make a mistake that could, cause a problem later down the road.
I am muting myself this time. So I just want to point out that I am a criminal attorney, and the majority of the magistrate's docket is criminal in nature. So I'm very familiar with most of the caseload that the magistrates will be handling. However, having said that, nobody can know everything. And I have not practiced a lot of civil law in my career, but I have done a lot of legal research and I know how to do it. And the first thing you do is, of course, you start with the statute and you read it. And there are cases that interpret the statutes and you read those. And then you also listen to the arguments of the attorneys. And sometimes this doesn't happen in magistrate court. People don't write briefs in magistrate court. But you can talk to the attorneys and ask them, and they do make arguments in that, legal arguments in magistrate court that just magistrates need to decide. And you questions, and you can ask attorneys, is there a particular case that you're relying on to make this statement or to take this position with? And then you can go back and read that case and decide whether or not you agree with that attorney that this case supports their particular position. So those are some of the things that you do as an attorney to familiarize yourself with an area of law. And yes, the other candidates are correct. It's always good to, if after you've done all this other work first, if you still have a couple questions or you want to talk the situation out, it's always good to find an attorney who you respect to go speak to talk about the issue at hand. But as a magistrate, it's your decision. The decision is yours finally, and you should never let anybody sway your personal decision.
Okay, I'm just going to say the question again, just so I understand what was asked. How would you prepare yourself for unfamiliar areas of the law? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Being an educator, a lifelong educator, I did this in all my work for years, and I still do it. When a case comes before me, I read, research some more before I address the file, the case, the hearing. Whenever I am approached with the situation, I do my background, my research, and I'm learning all the time. So I can see a case that looks familiar. It may say domestic battery, and I can think, okay, it may be this, but I really don't know until I read it, until I read the criminal complaint. And then after I read the criminal complaint, and I go and look at the law behind it. And a lot of them are familiar and the same, but you always run across something that is not going to be just like the one before. The age of the defendant, the situation in the complaint. So I've never take for granted that I already know what to expect in a case. And I think that that benefits the defendants and everyone involved in the case as well, the defendants, the victims. So to answer that question, I approach every case as if I am unfamiliar with it, and I do my research.
Thank you. Our next question. Do you volunteer with any community organizations? And how do you make yourself socially aware of issues affecting your larger community? And we will begin with Ms. Roper, followed by Mrs. Silveous, Mr. Anderson, and then Ms. Cesare, in that order, please.
Unmute.
Yes, the first part of the question, am I involved in community service? The answer is yes. I am a member of a community service organization that does a vast variety of community service throughout the two counties, the Eastern Panhandle, Berkeley and Jefferson counties. Just give a shout out to my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And the amount of community service is too vast to name, but they all involve giving up ourselves, our time, our talents, our treasures, and around helping people politically, educational-wise, human health. It's just a lot. I do a lot in public service and have really enjoyed that for the last 32 years that I've been a member of that organization. And socially, I am fortunate to have two young men in my lives. My sons are 20 and 22, and they keep me socially attuned to what's going on. And they let me know when things are out of, like, nobody says that anymore, or Mom, did you hear about this? In fact, yesterday, one of my sons sent me a video of a very disturbing incident in social justice that, that I looked at, and we had a conversation about it. And so, yeah, my family keeps me in tune to what's going on socially, in my sorority, and just being out in the community and talking with people at all levels. I am all ears to what's going on, just so that I can keep in tune.
Thank you. Next.
I'm going to ask if you could repeat the question again. I got the first part, but I want to make sure I understand the second part, if you don't mind.
Not a problem. The question in its entirety is, do you volunteer with any community organizations, yourself socially aware of issues affecting your larger community?
Thank you. I do volunteer work within my church. We do different service projects and things like that. So that keeps me kind of as well as staying abreast of what's going on socially. I am a school teacher currently, so I see things from the school end and how things are affecting students, such as, the pandemic right now with having to do things online. That has opened up a new world for everybody. So I'm seeing the struggles that the parents are having to homeschool their children now, keep up with technology. I currently take meals to some of my students that don't have transportation to get out and get to the meal delivery locations and things. So being an educator, I'm pretty much immersed in the community, seeing what goes on. And then also as a small business owner, I do work in my business. So I'm in contact with a lot of the community members, and fortunately I get to have conversations with them as well and find out how things are going. And through my business, we do spirit nights and things like that make donations to the different organizations such as Relay for Life, the different youth sports leagues and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I think it's Mr. Anderson. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear me?
Yes, it is.
I love that question. Oh my God, I couldn't wait till it was my time to answer this question. I've been retired since I was 52. But the first thing I want to say is that, attending Shepherd University, being 59 years old and dealing with our youth, I really took ownership for the last 4 years so I can mentor those students. And it somewhat guided me in the right direction. And what I did over my 4-year period, me and my wife, is every Sunday, my wife would cook a home-cooked meal, and we'd bring about 10 or 15 football players to our house. And believe it or not, you'd be surprised what's on them kids' minds, And then they bank accounts, how to save money, stuff like that. Also, I volunteered to over at the Boys and Girls Club, right there in Berkeley County. During the pandemic, they needed help over there as far as serving lunches and food and stuff like that. So, that was a challenge, and I really, really embraced that. Another thing that I really love about what's going on is that even though it's family, I have my 4 great-grands with me right now, and I haven't since probably about a month and a half now, because my granddaughter called me and told me and my wife that the daycares are closed down, I can't get a babysitter. So what do you do as a great-grand? You step and have them until August 1st. And right now, me and my wife is getting up every day and we're making sure that they get their education, which is a challenge. We don't plan for it, but hey, we always got to be prepared for it. Last but least, I just got accepted in, which is College Student Development Administration up at Shepherd University for my MBA. And I want to pursue that because I really like volunteering and helping people in general, especially our young folks. I just feel that that's an area that's needed for me to step up. I feel I credit my dad for, for that, him being a preacher, raising a son. So that's my mindset. I love the help. I love that question. Thank you very much. And I'm done.
Les?
So with regards to me, what I do is for volunteer work is I have over the years participated in various nonprofits. One of the most recent ones I've participated in recently is CASA, which is a child advocate, child court-appointed special advocate auxiliary. I always mess up that acronym. But basically, the CASA people help to train people to help with abuse and neglect matters. I'm also active in my church, and as a result of that, I also sit on a board called Caring Cupboard, which helps to provide food to people with children within the shelters do not necessarily have a lot of food at home. And I also sit on, as I mentioned before, I'm also a member of my pastoral council. With regards to keeping myself socially aware of issues that affect my community, first and foremost, local newspapers every day. I also try to read a couple of national papers or skim a couple of national papers to see what the national headlines are, because things that are happening nationally can affect us on a local level. To keep it limited, but I do try to skim some of the local community Facebook pages where people tend to express their concerns. And I also am a small business owner as well. And I, like Miss Silveous, I find myself talking with my customers and things come up and we have discussions that way. And that's another way I stay in touch with my community. I also have a group of friends who are very active within my community, and we stay in touch and we discuss things that way. So there's on all different levels, I try to keep myself aware of what's going on in the community.
Thank you. Our next question. What issues do you think significantly affect the minority and/or underserved community in Jefferson County? Oh, and we will start, pardon me, Mr. Anderson, then we will have Ms. Cesare, then Ms. Silveous, then Mrs. Roper. In that order, please.
Could you repeat that question for me one more time, please?
She was gonna post it. She was posting it, comments. Yes, the question is, it has been posted. The question is posted in your comments section. What issues do you think significantly affect the minority and/or underserved community in Jefferson County? Ready when you are, Mr. Anderson.
I would say domestic violence, and I would say child neglect. Because when I was doing my internship at the Victim Assistance Program for 6 months, and I was interacting with the victims, a lot of that I was able to enact with and sit on a lot of those cases. So I would say child abuse, and I would say domestic violence.
I think he is complete. Ms. Cesare, you're next.
Apologize.
Please unmute your mic.
I apologize again.
That's fine.
Some of the issues that affect the minority and underserved members of our community. Well, I think the big one that we can all agree upon is the opioid epidemic. And at first, having this has been going on for a long time. I noticed that this was a problem starting back in the 90s when I was practicing, representing a lot of people charged with crack and watching people's lives fall apart. And what I noticed as a public defender trying to help my clients is that there's just a real lack of services. Things have gotten better, but we can do a lot more for people to provide services on all services to help with just, addiction issues, but also the reasons why people become addicted. And that is because, people feel disenfranchised, they can't find jobs, that, and then they can't get a good job. And so it becomes sort of this cyclical thing, and people find themselves, turning to substance abuse to try to make themselves feel better. So we have, in essence, a lack of services. Things have gotten better, but we could do much better supporting people to help them when they're having a rough time. And I think that would be something that we could probably, hopefully, start focusing on more as we move forward in this community. And I think we're starting to do a good job with the opioid epidemic, and hopefully we can keep going forward.
Thank you. Next, please.
To kind of go along with what she was saying, I think a lot of the issues that I see are some mental health issues as far as people suffering with depression and anxiety. And as Ms. Cesare said, we have this opioid epidemic going on, and a lot of it results from untreated mental health. They're looking for a way to deal with life. Maybe they don't have a job, or they're under a lot of pressure. Maybe they don't have health care insurance. They can't go get the medical help that they need. So they're turning to the illegal substances, and then that becomes an addiction problem. And it's a domino effect. I mean, it affects anybody with an addiction like that. It affects everybody in their family, their children. It's going to tear homes apart and things like that. And it's sad to say, but sometimes it becomes repeated pattern, because the children are suffering, they're witnessing things that nobody should witness. And I think the untreated mental health issues seem to be what I feel very strongly about, that affect people. And like I said, they're looking for a way out. Thank you.
Yes, next.
Yes, when I think of the issues that affect minorities and what was the other? Underserved communities, I really think about the disconnect with resources. And I don't think it's a disconnect because of a certain person's color or that they are a minority, but I do think that when a person can't communicate with a person of authority or in leadership, a lot of times they miss out on resources that are available. They maybe don't know how to ask, or they don't feel that the person who is in a position to help, and when I say help, I mean just give information. Just, a lot of times people just want to know, where are the resources? How can I do this or do that? But when minorities don't see themselves in authority and leadership positions, a lot of times that's where the disconnect is, I believe. I'm going to time myself, I'm sorry, because I'm passionate about this topic. I don't want to go over, but I can't emphasize enough that a lot of the issues range from just not being able to relate, not being able to connect with the things that you may need or that would be nice, like opportunities for employment. If people of color or minorities don't see themselves in certain positions, they may not think that they're welcome in that setting. So they may not, apply or even even go and ask the question. So I think that that is the biggest thing in Jefferson County, West Virginia, that affects minorities and underserved communities.
Thank you. Our next question, it's going to be posted in the group chat once I finish, but I will try to read it slow so that you can hear it and understand it. The position of magistrate can be demanding. Does your current schedule allow for you to commit to the demands of the position of magistrate to serve the constituents of Jefferson County? And we will start with Mrs. Silveous, followed by Mrs. Roper, followed by Ms. Cesare, and then Ms. Anderson,
Yes,
you will complete when you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. I agree that the position of magistrate can be very demanding, especially with things such as being on call. My current schedule, I'm currently a school teacher, so of course, you know, if elected magistrate, I won't have that position anymore. So I would be able to dedicate my time to my new career. I have a husband, I do have 2 children. So he and I have already talked about how things would look from home if elected. And he, you know, we've worked on the scenario of what to do with the children when we're on call, and his schedule allows him to be home with the children. It also allows me, I'm local, I don't travel a whole lot, so I'm here. So I'm ready to serve, and I'm not going anywhere. So my schedule's wide open for something like this, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue next, please.
I'm sorry, am I next?
Yes.
Okay, I am so sorry. Talking about schedule, I'm actually on call, so I am balancing my schedule, so forgive me for leaving the screen. But yes, being a magistrate is demanding time-wise, and this is a perfect time in my life to be a magistrate because both of our children are in college, and well, one just graduated. But we last year had an empty nest, and so it's just my husband and I, and we live really close to the magistrate office. I can be there in no time when search warrants are needed or family protective orders are requested. I'm open to it. This is what I have pledged to do and enjoy doing it.
Thank you.
With regards to me, I would not have entered this race if I did not believe I could do a good job as magistrate. As an attorney, I am quite familiar with hard work, working long hours and working on the weekends. I did that for many, many, many years, over 20 years. With regards to my small business, I've had the discussion with my business partner, and I have scaled back the number of hours that I spend at my business, and we've arranged things in a way that, you know, the few hours that I am putting towards the back part of the store should not have any effect whatsoever on my role as magistrate. Also, my children are more or less grown at this point in time. My oldest is a sophomore at WVU. My second just graduated this year from Jefferson High, and my third is a junior, is going to be a junior at Jefferson High next year. So I'm in a very good position to devote myself to the role of magistrate.
I think
Yes,
it's
it
Mr.
is.
Anderson, correct? Yes, I am retired, been retired since 2013. And I have practiced selfless service in the military. I'm a firm believer with my background, when duty calls, you have to be available. And that's one thing about my military background, we don't work by the clock. So my availability right now is any. I mean, my daughters is 39 and 40. I got grandkids 23 and up, and I got 4 great grands. So my availability right now, I'm here for the people of Jefferson County. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Facebook. The question is, why should voters support you rather than your opponents? That's coming from Mr. Togans. And also this question is coming from Mr. Togans. Do the candidates have any new ideas / programs pertaining to magistrate court that can help the public? And that also was presented also by Steve Cox. So we will start with the order of Ms. Cesare, Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Roper, and Mrs. Silveous. In that order, please.
So voters.
Can they answer Mr. Togan's question first? Please answer Mr. Togan's question first.
Why? Yes. Why should voters support you rather than your opponents?
Voters should support me rather than my opponents because I am the most qualified position for this position, the most qualified candidate for this position. Again, I have over 20 years of courtroom experience as an attorney. I practiced on both sides of the courtroom as a prosecutor, as defense counsel. I just have the experience, and doing this kind of work, being a magistrate, is more complicated than the layperson thinks. As we've discussed before, there's case law that you need to read. There's rules of court that you need to be familiar with. There's the statutes themselves that you need to be familiar with. All of these things take a lot of time. All of this foundational law you need to be familiar with if you're going to do a good job as magistrate. And while both of my opponents do have exposure to the court system, they do not have experience working within the court system as a litigator. And I have that. And that's why I'm asking the voters of Jefferson County to support me. With regards to the new ideas of programs that can help the public, quite honestly, I don't have any new ideas or programs. I'm always open to any suggestions that might be offered. I am a big fan of alternative sentencing. As we discussed before, we've learned as a society that simply throwing people in jail or in prison does not help them at all. So if there's anything that we can do, any kind of a new alternative sentencing program that we can come up with, I would be very interested in supporting it if it works within the system. But I believe as a candidate that you just don't move into a situation and start making changes. You sit there and you observe. And also, we've been doing this for a while. We've had courts in our society for over 200 years, and recently here in Jefferson County, there's been a lot of good work trying to meet the needs of our society as they come up. And I think that so far they're doing a pretty good job, but I am open to any ideas that people may have as long as they're reasonable and they can support the community.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, that would be you. Next.
Yes, ma'am. Well, let me answer the first question first. And I think that question was, why should the voters vote for me besides voting for the other candidates? Is that correct?
Yes. Why should voters support you rather than your opponents?
Because I'm the best candidate for the job. I'm the best candidate for the job because of my travel and my military background. I've been given a public service for the last 22 years. I have spent 8.5 years in Germany, 2 years in Korea, and 3 years in Southwest Asia. Those are different cultures, which means I understand different diversities, and I understand when to apply it. And another thing that I want to stress, I'm not from here. So if I'm not from here, I can't bring new ideas of places in which I live. Because right now, when our young people come out of high school, besides going into the military or going off to college, which a lot of times a lot of them don't do, what else is there for them to do right here in Jefferson County? Nothing. So therefore, we need to open up and look into open up more programs like arcade centers, a skating ring, something for them to go and relax so they won't have that mindset to where if they don't got nothing to do, they go out there and they mess around, pardon my French, and do something stupid, and then they end up in the courtroom, which means they have violated a crime. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
The second part to that question, Mr. Anderson was also asking about, do you have any new ideas, programs pertaining to the magistrate court that can help the public?
New ideas that I have pertaining to the magistrate court would be, I know we see the offenders being punished. Let me back up because I'm about to answer that question the wrong way. As far as different programs, I would say for myself, I would probably look in on probably opening up different programs for our youth. I know we got the drug addiction, I understand the alcohol, I understand the other programs that we got in place. But as far as my ideas, I would like to first get involved with the programs here in Jefferson County to see if I can come up with other ideas to stem off of that to better Jefferson County.
Thank you. Next, please. Mrs. Roper.
Yes, the first question was, why should I be voted in over my opponents? First of all, I just want to say that there has been a long time since there's been like an opening or an opportunity to even become a magistrate for a lot of us. So I do understand having opponents and, you know, everyone wanting to be a magistrate in Division III. But I think that I should be able to keep my job as a magistrate in Division III. I've been vetted by the Supreme Court of Appeals. I am doing the job. I can keep some of that continuity that is being lost with so many, with 3 longstanding magistrates leaving. And Magistrate D'Angelo, yes, she has been in the magistrate office for a long time. However, she was appointed also in 2018. I was appointed in 2019. And so it would be good to keep that consistency. I'm learning every day, and that just benefits the whole judicial system. So I hope that people see that and give me a chance when they go to the polls. As far as programs, I visited a really nice recovery program on just yesterday that I think once it gets up and fully staffed and insurance and all of that, that will be another good program. I think as many recovery programs, recovery coaches that are in the community are all good programs to help with a lot of our issues that we see in magistrate court.
Thank you. And last, Ms. Silveous.
As far as why the public should support me for magistrate, as I stated earlier, I'm born and raised here. I'm one of the people, I'm very trustworthy, and I've watched this area grow and change. And this community has always been a part of me. A magistrate is a people's judge. So I feel like to do the job effectively, that you need to be one of the community people. You need to be somebody that has been here, has watched things grow and change, knows people, and can relate to them. I think that's very important, is being able to relate to the people in our area. As far as new ideas, I'm open to new ideas, and I'm very much in support of the alternative sentencing. I feel like there should be other choices out there that can help people instead of always sending them to jail. There's things like rehab programs and things that I think are very important and could be utilized, and I'm not opposed to that. I would be more than willing to look into that and see how that can be made to work for Jefferson County and get some more systems in place, like Mr. Anderson said too, as well, to help the youth in this area to kind of try to prevent things from escalating from youth into adulthood.
Thank
you.
Our next question, which is in your group chat, is PSO, which is personal safety orders, cases are where someone can request a restraining order against someone else that's not a family member. Do you favor or oppose holding hearings on personal safety orders being open to the public? And this is coming from Lawrence Smith. Oh, I'm sorry. And that order will be Mrs. Roper, Mrs. Silveous, Mr. Anderson, and then Ms. Cesare.
Okay, the personal safety orders and the family protective orders, I have to go by what the law says. And if a person does not want the public in to hear their personal situation, then I'm not going to allow it. I think just as the title says, it's personal. You know, personal safety orders a lot of times involve alleged rape and things that are very personal that I don't think the public should, you know, hear the allegations on each side unless, you know, the people want to allow their witnesses or people into the hearing. But yeah, it's really up to the person who are involved. I would like to always protect their right to privacy.
Thank you. Next, please.
Okay. Okay. I agree with Ms. Roper that, you know, with it being a personal safety order, a lot of things that happen are personal and private and have information that the victims especially may not want the general public to know. And if it's their choice to do so, then of course we would honor that choice. But when it comes to private matters like that, victims sometimes are ashamed of what's going on, and they don't want those people to know in the community. So I have to agree with her that it would be up to the person on how they feel, and I would support their wishes. But if it were me as a person, I respect people's privacy.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, when you're ready.
Yes, I am ready. I totally agree with both candidates. I believe in confidentiality. You know, if the individual don't want the public to be a part of that, if the law, you know, say that, you know, that they should not be, then I would have to just go with that. I believe in confidentiality. I believe that they have every right to say, hey, look, you know, my crime, I don't want it to be just publicized, you know what I mean? Or I don't want it to be televised or on Facebook. So I think that they are really entitled to that personal safety order.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with all the other candidates. These orders are temporary in nature. They're not going to be affecting people's rights as a whole, and the importance of maintaining somebody's privacy outweighs the need of the public to hear what's going on in these hearings. You know, if something inappropriate happens in one of these hearings, the parties have the ability to take that up to circuit court. So I would absolutely uphold the law. You know, I agree with how the law is right now and believe that people have a right to their privacy in these hearings.
Thank you. We are coming down to nearing the end of the program. So we do have a couple of more questions. So I would ask at this time that your answers be in response to 1 minute to each question, because we have a couple more that we would like to get in order that you would have time at the end for your summation. So our next question is, what is your opinion on the importance of bail for minorities and or alternatives? And the order we will go is Mr. Anderson, Ms. Cesare, Ms. Silveous, and then Mrs. Roper. Mr. Anderson?
Well, yes, ma'am. Could you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just going to keep it simple. I think that the bail should fit the crime. I mean, pretty much in a nutshell. I mean, you know, I think if an individual come in front of me or come before me, there's guidelines. So depending on the crime, that's the bail that I would set for that individual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For me, the question is, what is your opinion on the importance of bail for minorities and alternatives? Well, generally with bail, in the past, bail has been, I think what this question is trying to get at is the amount of the bail. And in the past, there have been some pretty high bails set for people, and people have not been able to bond out because they can't afford to post their bond or even pay a bail bondsman. The effect of that is this person is actually serving a sentence in advance to even pleading guilty to a crime. Then what happens is, because a person just wants to get out of jail, they plead guilty even though without really giving much thought, quite honestly, to whether or not they might be able to win a jury trial or a bench hearing on the substance of the charge that has been lodged against them. And so really what we need to do is look at, to make sure as magistrates that we just don't automatically set a high bond just because a person's charged with what they view to be a serious crime. Absolutely, the severity of the crime is part of the consideration when setting bond, but other parts of the consideration is the person's ties to the community, because the only purpose for bail is to ensure that the individual shows up in a hearing, just shows up at their hearing. You want to look at the severity of the crime, whether or not the person has ties to the community, whether or not the person is a flight risk, whether or not the person is going to potentially commit other crimes while out on bond. And those are all the things that you look at when determining how much you're going to set for a person's bond. And that's what we need to do, because in the past, I've watched it as a offender.
Yes, Ms. Next, please.
Okay, I wasn't sure if she was finished yet. My opinion is, well, not really an opinion. Bail is used to ensure that the person shows up to court. I don't feel that bail should be set as a punishment, such as, you know, setting a high bail just as a punishment. I don't believe in that. As Ms. Cesare said, you know, you look at the severity of the crime, their ties to the community. You know, if they are somebody who has been in trouble before, and you set it based on that to ensure that they show up. And as I said, it should not be any sort of punishment for anybody. And same thing with alternative sentencing. I mean, everybody should be treated fairly. Everybody should have the same opportunity to have alternative sentencing as an option versus incarceration. So I think it should be down the middle as far as being fair. It doesn't matter who you are in front of me. Bond is going to be set based on lots of facts and things that have been taken into consideration. Thank you.
Next, please.
Okay.
I have it.
So it says, what is your opinion on the importance of bail for minorities and or alternatives? Well, I usually don't call myself a minority, but I will for the sake of this question. Being a minority, I think, and I'll go back to the one of the past answers. When minorities see me, they may get the confidence to state their case during an arraignment that may change the circumstances of their bail or their bond. But if they're not comfortable, they may be able to tell me something that I didn't know that could that's not written in the criminal complaint. That could be a huge factor in the amount of the bond and or personal recognizance. So I believe that me being a person of a diverse background may give others of other backgrounds the confidence to advocate for themselves and when it comes to bail and bond. But I don't look at the person's ethnicity when I'm setting bail. But I hope you understand what I'm saying is that the person seeing themselves may just gain confidence in advocating for themselves.
Time.
Not that it always works. I want to say that.
Thank you. Thank you. Time is up. Okay. The next question, and keep in mind, we're trying to limit this to 1 minute so that we can get through the questions in order for your summation. One of the key qualities of being a magistrate is to have good character. Do you consider yourself as having good character? If so, why? And give an example. And we will start this with Ms. Silveous, Ms. Roper, Ms. Cesare, and then Mr. Anderson. In that order, you can begin.
One of the key qualities, as you said, is to be a person of good character. I do consider myself as a good character. For 16, going on 17 years now, I have been trusted with the children of Jefferson County, and I have been a role model to them, and I have mentored them well past the time that they have been with me. I've taught the primary end of school, kindergarten, first and second grade. I still remain in contact with some of my students that have since gotten married, graduated college, and had babies. And they still look to me for advice and things like that. So I feel like the fact that they trust me, even after the fact that it's been so many years that I've had them, I'm doing something right. I mean, I have some good character in there, and I feel like I've helped shape the youth of Jefferson County. So yeah, I do consider myself to have very good character.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I do have good character. Like I said, I have been vetted with the Supreme Court of Appeals, West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals. But beyond that, my values are character. I'm fairness, high integrity, and dignity and respect are the foundation of my character.
Thank you. Next.
I believe I'm next, correct?
No, I'm sorry, you're last. Ms. Cesare is next, and then you will follow.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So the question is, do you consider yourself having good character? I do. I work hard every day effort to stay in my integrity. And I view that being in my integrity is to all other people with respect, living by the golden rule, and listening with other people. And when I'm engaging with other people who I don't agree with or who I don't understand, I try to be respectful and I try to listen to them. And that's a very important. I'm also a very hard worker. This is evidenced by the fact that I've been a litigator for over 20 years. I've opened up a small business. It's still open. We're celebrating our 4th year, and that takes a lot of hard work, as Ms. Silveous knows. So these are some of the things that I believe is my good character, in addition, of course, to the volunteer work that I've done and my work within the church. Thank you.
Hey. Ms. Bingo,
Mr.
may I ask a
Anderson, please.
question, please?
Mr. Anderson is
Yeah,
next, please.
I would say character, doing the right thing all the time, even when people are not around. Treat people equally and fair. Character goes a long way with focus, vision, integrity, and accountability. And that's how I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you finished, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Yes, thank you.
All right. Our last question for the evening, we're coming short on our time now, is necessary to use sound judgment in all decisions. what are the exceptions, if any? Oh, and we would start with Ms. Cesare, Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Roper, and then Ms. Silveous. You will be the last one to answer that question for this evening's event. Thank you.
So just to be clear, the question is maturity and sound judgment and sound temperament are a key quality of being a good magistrate. Is that the question? And how do you rate why?
She has combined the question. She has combined the questions, what you're seeing. The question is, as a magistrate, do you believe that it is necessary to use sound judgment in all decisions? And what are the exceptions, if any?
Yes, I believe that that it is necessary to use sound judgment in all decisions. And I cannot think of a time when that wouldn't be necessary. I don't believe there's an exception to that. I mean, to be calm and dispassionate, impartial, thoughtful. You know, as a magistrate, you are dealing with people. You're dealing with people at some of the worst points in their lives, and you cannot make quick decisions. You have to work quickly, but you have to be thoughtful. And so I don't think that there's ever an exception to using sound judgment as a magistrate.
Thank you. Next, please, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, there's no exception to the rule. You should always use sound judgment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I always use sound judgment. I'm not saying that I'm always correct, but at the time of my judgment, it is sound. But I'm also mature enough, if I've made a mistake, to go back and try to correct the mistake. So I use sound judgment, sure. I'm calm in my demeanor, which is important, and speaks to the sound judgment that I can use, because I don't make snap decisions.
Thank you.
I agree with everyone that, you know, as a magistrate, you have to use sound judgment. I don't believe there is any exception. And as some of the other candidates have said, you know, you're handling and dealing with people, and so it's scary. It's scary to be in court for somebody who's never been in there before. And, you know, you're dealing with people that are sometimes in the worst situations of their life. So you can't make a snap judgment. You can't base your judgments on your opinions or feelings. You have to, and with that, you need to be able to remain calm and fair and unbiased, and, you know, be thoughtful in the process. So I don't think there's any room for snap judgments, and I think everything should be of.
Thank you. This concludes my portion for the questioning. Reverend Laws, do you have any follow-up questions at this time?
Thank you, Ms. Ringo, for an excellent job leading us through our question and answer period. I do not have a follow-up question, but I have a question. Earlier today, the NAACP received an email stating that we cannot ask questions relating to social justice. Can you all, as candidates, please explain to your listeners why?
Ms. Roper, yes, you can.
Anybody can start. I don't.
Yes, because every magistrate candidate is part of the judicial system as a candidate, and we are under a code of ethics. And being a magistrate and any judge, we're in a position that we have to follow the rule of law. We can't we can't express, we can't express our feelings, because if we express our feelings, that might go into the courtroom, and someone may feel that we aren't fair because they think we feel a certain kind of way about a situation.
Thank you.
So it's just the code of ethics.
Yeah, I would like to just echo what Arthena is saying. The judicial rules of conduct prohibit magistrates or magistrate candidates for magistrate or any judicial position to take a position on an issue that might come before them. So if you were to ask a question that would touch on something like that, we would be prohibited from doing that. We can't take any kind of a political position because we're supposed to be neutral and impartial.
Thank you. Anyone else like to respond to that? Mr.
I
Anderson?
agree with, I totally agree with both candidates. I mean, they pretty much, summed it all up in a nutshell.
Yeah, and
the code of
I
ethics.
agree as well. I mean, they did a great job of summing up why there are so many things that we can't discuss or talk about.
It has been said tonight that several magistrates have been serving in that capacity. What's your opinion on term limits for this office?
We'll start at the top with Ms. Cesare, then we'll have Ms. Silveous, followed by Ms. Roper and Mr. Anderson.
One day I'm going to unmute myself. So there's two sides to the coin. On one side, if people stay in office, might not work as hard to do their job, and they might, maybe not behave as appropriately as they should. The flip side of the coin is that the longer you stay in the job, the more experience that you get. And when you're doing a judicial job, this isn't a policy job like the legislative branch. This is a job that, as I've tried to explain throughout this evening and to the voters, this is the job that you have to, there's so much law that you need to just be familiar with in order to even to have your first hearing as magistrate, as I've said before. You have to be familiar with the statutes, the case law, the rules of court, all of these things. And so if you're a lay person and you don't have the experience that a lawyer like myself has, the longer, if you are dedicated to your job and you're a hard worker, the longer the better you're going to get at the job. So I would say, with regards to a judicial position, I would say that having a term limit might not be helpful, because what you're doing is you're taking and you're putting, if I could just finish real quickly, you're putting the community in a position of always having to start over again with your magistrates. And you might want to consider having people with experience.
Thank you. Who's next? Who's next?
That's me. I have to agree with her, with Ms. Cesare. I feel like with term limits, as she said, there's always going to be a turnover. And being a magistrate, you're constantly learning. And the longer you do it, the better practice you get. And I feel like the turning over of, every 4 years or however many years they would set for a limit is just going to maybe cause some, not necessarily confusion, but just it's always going to be changing. And if you get those familiar faces and people who know what they're doing, I feel like it would be a better fit for the community. I mean, the magistrates that we've had previously, they've been doing it for a really long time and they've done a great job with it. So you can only get better with practice, is the way I look at it. So I have to agree with Ms. Cesare about, it's not a bad idea to have no term limits for something like that.
Thank you. I'm trying to move us along because I want to give you all time for your summation. Ms. Roper.
Okay, no, I'm not in favor of term limits just because the community gets the opportunity to vote for a magistrate every 4 years. And so that's an opportunity to get new magistrates in. Just because there's been a lot of, our magistrates had stayed for a long time, doesn't is not necessarily a bad thing, especially because they've been voted in. And of course, if we collected money like the sheriff does, that would be something different. But yeah, I think it's fine that magistrates do not have term limits.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
I feel the magistrate should have a term limit. I think that just like in the military, you know, sometimes you can get too complacent in the position and you might not know it, but others can see it. So, I mean, I take my hat off to Miss Booba, D'Angelo, and retired wrestlers. You know, that's a lot of years. But I would say you should serve about 8 to 12 years. And I understand that the people vote you in because you can easily get comfortable with your job and get too complacent with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And once again, we thank all of the candidates for participating in this forum. Just as I mentioned last night, when candidates participate in an NAACP forum, you send a very clear message to the citizens of our county, and that is, you are concerned about all citizens. And so we thank you so much and for being here. And this forum has been very informative. And we thank you, and we thank our my co-moderator, Sister Ringo. Thank you so much. Now we are going to get prepared for the 2-minute summations. Sister Ringo, who should we start with?
We can start at the top with Ms. Cesare. Then we will have Ms. Silveous, followed by Mrs. Roper, and then Mr. Anderson will be the final individual.
All right. Then we have a closing prayer. Ms. Cesare?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank the NAACP again for this opportunity, and I'd like to thank all of the voters who've taken the time to learn about their candidates. Magistrate Court is more than just a people's court. It's the first level of the judiciary here in West Virginia, and magistrate's a serious position. Magistrates directly affect people's lives. They enforce and uphold constitutional and statutory rights. They can and do put people in jail for up to 1 year. They issue search warrants and arrest warrants, and they preside over jury trials. And while doing all of this, magistrates must uphold the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments of our Bill of Rights. In addition to our constitutional guarantees and statutes, magistrates must be familiar with the rules of court, which control how hearings and jury trials are conducted so that the proceeding will have integrity and be fair. And of course, the case law guides judges and magistrates in how this law is to be specifically applied. It takes practice and study to absorb all of this foundational law, and I've practiced law for over 20 years. I have the necessary experience and knowledge to make the correct legal decisions, to protect people's rights, and to ensure that the docket is moving efficiently. I'm also endorsed by community leaders with proven track records. Former Sheriff and Magistrate Bill Senseney, 3 former elected prosecutors from both parties, Mike Thompson, Pamela Jean Games Neely, and John Skinner. Prominent physicians and community leaders, Mark Cucuzzello and Roberta DiBiase, former Charlestown City Council person, Ann Panessa, and the Green Coalition. All of these people in this organization all have the same thing in common. They've given their time and talent to positively serve and support their community. They all support me because they know that I share this commitment and that I intend, should I be elected magistrate, to use my years of experience to impartially, fairly, and positively serve the citizens of Jefferson County. Thank you for your time, consideration, and your vote in this election.
Thank you so much.
Again, I want to thank everybody for having us here this evening. It was a great opportunity to be able to reach the voters of Jefferson County. Again, my name is Holly Silveous, and I am running for Magistrate in Division 3. I was born and raised here, and I have a strong tie to our community. It's something that I love and I believe in, and I feel that we need the best for Jefferson County. The role of a magistrate is to be fair and impartial to everyone, regardless of who they are, their race, their color, their culture, or economic class. I feel like I am a person that can handle that and treat everybody. I'm a problem solver. I'm a hard worker. I'm a self-starter. I'm not afraid to ask for help if I need it, and I have the best interest of our Jefferson County citizens in my heart. So I humbly ask for your vote on June 9th for Magistrate in Division 3. Thank you.
Magistrate Roper.
Yes, in closing, just a reminder that I am your newest magistrate, Magistrate Roper. I thoroughly enjoy serving my community as a magistrate. I try to build on the positive and serious manner and represent the court system to defendants, law enforcement, and the community. I feel the judicial system is an important part of the balance of our society. I am qualified to serve as a magistrate because I'm doing the job. My education and my skill set give me the skills to be a good listener, to be calm, to show maturity, and to represent the court system in a fair and dignified. My fundamental values are those of fairness and high integrity. And I just ask that when you go to the polls and you are looking at Magistrate Division 3, that you choose Arthena Roper to continue to keep me doing the job that I enjoy doing and am willing to do for the community of Jefferson County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Yes, sir. I would like to first thank everybody that's involved as far as putting this event together. It's been great. I would be committed, dependable, understand social awareness, be patient, and make good judgment. Like I mentioned before, all people are treated equally because this is the principle in which our country is built upon. We should treat individuals that are using the court system with the utmost respect. My values and morals has prepared me to serve as magistrate in Division 3. I am a good citizen. When elected magistrate, I will enforce laws and deliver justice for all citizens of Jefferson County. Collaboration prevents separation. Vote Osmund Anderson for magistrate in Division 3. I am the best candidate for this job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me remind our listeners that early voting started today, and it will continue through Saturday, June the 6th. Our primary election day is Tuesday, June 9th, and the polls open at 6:30 a.m. and close at 7:30 p.m. Please vote. Tomorrow night, we will continue our forums with the candidates for the Jefferson County Board of Education. Please join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. You can follow us live on Facebook. After the forums end, the recording will be on the Jefferson County NAACP website. So for those who missed it, they can pick it up on our website. So we encourage you to let people know they can still hear this great forum. A special thanks to the lady who helped make this possible, the Chief Executive Officer of Innovative Solutions, Miss Jamila Fleet. Can we just kind of give her a big applause for making this possible?
Thank you.
I describe her using the 3 Ps: patient, productive, and professional.
Excellent.
And it takes a lot of patience working with me. And so she has been extremely helpful, and I thank her, and I thank God for her,
Yes.
and for all of you. If it was possible, I would vote for all four, but it's just not possible. Okay, so I have to choose someone.
Right.
May God bless you, and may you have much success in your campaign.
Thank you.
Let us close with the word of prayer, please. Most gracious, kind, and loving God, once again we come. We thank you for those who have made a commitment to serve the citizens of Jefferson County. Be with these candidates, be with our NAACP branch, and all of those who are striving to make a difference. For this is our prayer. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, everyone. Best of luck.
Good night, everyone.
Best of luck to everyone.
Same to you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.